Many people dream of having a family and being able to provide the world for their kids. However, in this truly saddening case, her children were not her priority. And how many people's lives on social media is different to their reality? August 9, 2020. Police were called to Kinkhurst Apartments in Birmingham, UK. They discovered a 3-year-old girl lying unresponsive in her room. Kaylee Jade Priest was described as a beautiful and bubbly little girl who was always smiling. She lived with her 23-year-old mother, Nicola Priest, who was known as Nikki, and her younger brother, who was coming to a year old. Nikki was the one who called emergency services that morning. Around 11:20, they arrived. 11:25 a.m. Sadly, Kaylee was pronounced dead. One of the paramedics who attended the apartment said, "Nikki was on the bed crying and was saying, 'I don't think she's alive.' The little one was lying on the floor nearby, and Kaylee was in her pink and blue pajamas. It didn't take paramedics long to realize when they was trying to help the child, she had been dead for some time. Her lips were purple and her body was stiff. At the time, Nikki was dating a man called Callum Redfern. She told paramedics they had put Kaylee to bed at 7 p.m., but she had been sick 3 times that night, and she last checked on Kaylee before she headed to bed herself around 10:30 p.m., 10:30 a.m. She woke up and found her daughter unresponsive and moved her to the floor for CPR. Nikki told the paramedics that 2 weeks prior to the incident, Kaylee fell off her play table and hit her head, but didn't sustain any other injuries apart from vomiting. Apparently, Kaylee was happy and normal after. However, according to her mother, her appetite was reduced. When the paramedics cut open Kaylee's pajama top, the disturbing truth would start to unveil. "I saw marks on her chest and torso area. There were bruises and small clusters on the side. There was a red abrasion in the middle of the chest." Around the same time, emergency services at the scene started to notice other worrying things. The room they was in was plain with a small, dirty mattress with no bed sheets, duvet, or curtains, looking more like a prison cell than a child's bedroom. From the reports above, it was more than enough to bring in Nikki and her boyfriend in for questioning. This is when the dark truth of what happened to Kaylee would start to come to light. Nikki was a very active TikTok user, and before the devastating incident, she posted many videos with her daughter, Kaylee. Portraying a loving mom, however, behind the scenes was a different story. Investigations continued. Nikki was free to grieve her daughter, posting tribute videos on TikTok with a caption saying, "RIP my baby." She even posted further videos and tributes online. "I love you so much, darling. Mommy will never forget you ever, RIP Angel." Shockingly, not even 24 hours later, she was back to posting her usual dancing videos with this caption. She continued posting videos on TikTok, which was weird, as it hadn't even been 2 months since her daughter was dead. Yet here she was dancing on TikTok like nothing happened. September 2023. Investigators gathered enough evidence to arrest Nikki and her partner, Callum. They were arrested for Kaylee's murder. From Kaylee's post-mortem results, it showed she had died from injuries to the chest and abdominal area consistent to being punched, kicked, or stamped on. Some injuries were shown to be partially healed and dated back to the incident 2 weeks prior. This evidence portrays she was a victim of physical abuse. The injuries found were so severe, experts compared them to the equivalent of falling from a 3rd-story building or being hit by a car going 40 miles per hour. The pair denied the murder charges, but blamed each other. June 2021. The trial began. The actual details were revealed. Before Nikki was with Callum, she was seeing a man called Dan. Dan treated Kaylee like his own, but he said he noticed bruises now and then, and assumed it was just from her playing. He went on to say that whilst Nikki may not have won a Mother of the Year award, he wouldn't have imagined her ever causing harm to her own daughter. Oddly, Lisa Dixon, Dan's mother, had a different opinion. 2018. Nikki and Kaylee were living with Dan's mother, and during this period, she said she noticed how harshly she treated Kaylee, saying Nikki would refer to her as Rat, but her son claims he never saw Nikki abusing Kaylee. Lisa stated she witnessed 6 separate occasions where Nikki used corporal punishment to discipline her 3-year-old daughter. Several other witnesses also came forward and said they saw Nikki hit her daughter and verbally abuse her. a 17-year-old who would sometimes babysit and look after Kaylee, said that she saw Nikki slap her twice in anger, once when she asked for food, and another time when she put a blanket on her baby brother's face. The babysitter went on to say she wanted to pick Kaylee up to protect her, but Nikki grabbed Kaylee and pulled her hair before dragging her to the bedroom. Neighbors had also said they often heard Nikki shouting at Kaylee, saying things like, "Shut up, go away, or leave me alone." Every time Kaylee would start crying, she would drown out the sound by blasting music. Callum's friend of many years, called Matthew Alpott, told the jury about the pair's dysfunctional relationship, and they had only been dating for 3 months before Kaylee's death. Shockingly, within that short period, Nikki had done things to show she valued Callum above everything and everyone in her life, even though she was a struggling single mom with debts. She had overdrawn in order to buy Callum a BMW. Matthew said that when he went with Callum to purchase the car, it came to a few hundred less than what he got given from Nikki. But he didn't tell her so he could pocket the extra money. Despite the constant disrespect and doing things to show Nikki he didn't really care about her or her kids, she held on to the relationship even after the incident. Matthew also stated, Callum had a bad temper. 24th July 2020. Few days before Kaylee's death, text messages were exchanged saying, "I'm gonna kill her because she keeps leaving the living room or going in the kitchen, so I've paled her one and smacked her for some writing in her nappy." Callum said, "Good, give her one from me." Nikki replied, "I will, babe." 3 days later, Callum messaged Nikki saying, "I'm going to keep the little brat away from me. Sick of your sow-wowing daughter." Prosecutors said the messages painted a vivid picture of the uncaring attitude from Nikki and Callum towards Kaylee. In court, CCTV was played of Kaylee and Nikki going to the park only hours before the incident. You can see Kaylee being happy, but her mum being uninterested and looking at herself in the reflection. Prosecution stated that all the evidence together was enough to show the jury that Kaylee didn't matter to Nikki. 8 August 2020. Callum's friend Matthew was in the apartment the night before Kaylee was found dead. He said, when he arrived, Kaylee was already in her PJs eating frozen food in the corner separate from the others. After she finished her meal, Kaylee started jumping and playing around the apartment. At 7 p.m., Callum put Kaylee to bed as Nikki was smoking on the balcony. Callum was with Kaylee around 10 minutes, shortly after Nikki joined him in the bedroom. Matthew said he could hear muffled voices but couldn't tell what they was saying. As most young kids, Kaylee didn't fall asleep and got up and started rattling the stairgate so she could come out and play. She was ignored, and sometime later, she fell asleep. Later, Matthew said he heard Callum shouting from the hallway that Kaylee was sick, but he told the jury he didn't know what Callum was doing in Kaylee's room at the time, as she had already gone to bed and so had Nikki. They changed the bed sheets and Nikki ran a bath, and around 10 to 20 minutes later they came into the living room after Kaylee was put back to bed. Matthew was thinking to leave, but Callum insisted he stayed for a while. However, after Kaylee was sick, he was in a hurry for Matthew to leave. Matthew left, but returned later to pick up his sunglasses, and only saw Kaylee's head as she was covered by her duvet when walking past her room. Later at night, the pair would exchange messages around 20 past 11, briefly talking about Kaylee, and if she was sick, but not long after it seemed as if Nikki wasn't even worried about Kaylee being sick, as she only seemed to be bothered about herself and Callum. If she had taken Kaylee to the hospital, she could still be alive. It took 13 hours for Nikki to check on her daughter and call an ambulance. It still remains unclear what actually happened in that room to Kaylee. The pair blamed each other. After the trial, the judge said they was both responsible for the death of Kaylee, and believed they put Kaylee to bed at 7 p.m. and wanted some private time, but kept getting interrupted by Kaylee, which caused them to get frustrated. With the vomiting to be a result of the beating Kaylee received. He did state he believes they did not intend to kill her. Nicola Priest, 23, was sentenced to 15 years over the death of Kaylee Jade Priest, who was found dead last year at the Solihull flat where they lived. Priest and then lover Callum Redfern, 22, who was jailed for 14 years, were found guilty of manslaughter.